Welcome, everyone, to yet another episode of Disruption Talks. As I usually do before every interview, I have my Bloomberg on my TV, and just this morning I saw this awfully relevant to today's topic piece of news. A crypto exchange says 24 million fat finger trade being undone. Mistakenly, 7,626 Ethereum items were mistakenly taken as a transaction fee. And the topic of today's conversation is how to make the crypto world simple. And no better person to talk about that than the Chief Digital Officer of Börse Stuttgart, Ulli, joining us today. Hi, Ulli.
Hi, Philip. Thanks a lot for having me.
It's a pleasure. It's a pleasure. It's a mutual pleasure for sure. So, Chief Digital Officer, member of the Group Executive Board at Börse Stuttgart, and you've been with Börse Stuttgart for quite some time, I've seen, right?
Yeah, actually, that's true. So I had my past history and my beginning of my financial and working career with Börse Stuttgart. Then I decided sometime that I also need to do something on my own. So I founded my own fintech startup and brought that up with my co-founders for about 5 years until I then sold the company again to Börse Stuttgart Group in 2017. And this is where basically the whole, strategy of Börse Stuttgart in the digital field started, driven by us mainly back then. And now we're driving forces together with Börse Stuttgart on various fields in the digital space.
A dive into the digital ventures and future of cryptocurrencies at Börse Stuttgart is what we will be discussing today. So I want to pull this topic a little bit more about the past experiences, the current role, and I want to ask you, what does your day or a week look like as the CDO of Börse Stuttgart? But I've also noticed on your LinkedIn that this was a position that you have taken in September 2019, if I recall correctly. So I'm also curious to hear, what was it like to be appointed that position? And within a couple months, perhaps half a year, if I'm counting correctly, up until March 2020, when the responsibilities of a chief digital officer expanded or became that much more important, I believe, in the necessity to digitally catch up with everything given COVID, right? So I'm curious to hear what your day looks like, but I'm also curious to hear that pivotal moment between you entering at the CDO in 2019, which was the normal times, and the now.
Yeah, thanks a lot for the question. So yeah, basically, how does my week or day look like? So there's obviously a couple of board meetings we have to attend and get the steering in the right direction ready. And then me personally, I'm responsible for the market side. So everything which is connected to growth, growth in revenue, growth in trade volume, growth in KYC users on our apps. On the B2B side, there's also growth of new partnerships that we do. So this is basically the main KPIs that I'm running after. So grow, grow the team as well. We have been growing, I think, in the last 6 months, about 50 people. We will be growing by another 50 to 60 people in the next coming 6 or 12 months. So there's a lot of new faces that are working with us, and obviously we expand on various angles. So we started on the B2C side with an app called Bison, where we try to enable the broad mass public to enter into crypto in a very smooth and simple way. And then obviously we already started this journey in 2017, 2018. We launched a product in early 2019. And then if you are at the forefront of the industry on the traditional financial players entering into the crypto space, obviously there's other B2B players that are looking at you and then want to partner and grow with you on that field. So what happens now is that we get a lot of interest in the B2B field of people that want to join us on that journey. Yeah.
Okay, so
going
sorry.
more into the
No,
going
please.
more into the second part of your question on the pivotal point. So Actually, not much changed when we entered the global pandemic due to COVID, because what we did when we started in 2017 was to actually digitize the complete company or the complete group. So, everyone had a laptop. Before that, it was not the case. We obviously brought in new communication methods and project managing tools like Slack or ClickUp and Monday, things like that. So when actually the pandemic hit us globally, which is pretty sad, then not really that much changed, because our teams anyway were distributed across Germany and also across Europe already. So the only thing that changed, and it's quite unfortunate, is that the physical meetings didn't happen anymore. So I think for me personally, that was a big loss in the team spirit, that you could, get together physically, have a beer, some food, and it's just different if you cheer on the screen and you have your beer bottle right next to your computer. It feels a little bit like you're an addict. It's much more comfortable if you really meet the people in person, and this is why I'm also happy that now everything is opening up again. I was last week at the Money 2020 in Amsterdam. It's great to see all these people again. So luckily, it seems that we have the end coming of this global pandemic.
I completely agree with you. It does feel somehow uncomfortable drinking towards your computer instead of drinking towards another human. Definitely not a vibe. Definitely a breath of fresh air when you actually get to meet another human being in person. What I want to dig in a little bit is, how did you personally first get involved with anything crypto, anything blockchain? What was the first time that you saw this and said, okay?
Yeah, it was actually pretty late to the party, so to say. I founded my company in 2013, and the company was originally designed to do predictive data analytics. So what we did is artificial intelligence and social media and all unstructured data sources to extract relevant information to generate alpha in trading. And my co-founders are coming from Slovenia, and obviously crypto, Bitcoin is something more hyped there, because you have Bitstamp as one of the oldest European crypto exchanges. So I remember in 2014, my CTO we were in a meeting and we were talking about the product strategy, and he was like, yeah, we should also really exploit all this crypto and Bitcoin space for generating all this information. And I looked at him and I was like, bit what? I never heard of it. So and this is when I started to dig in. Then we quickly designed our algorithms to also analyze relevant data on Twitter and other sources for crypto and Bitcoin. And yeah, the more and more I got into Bitcoin, but particularly also I was fascinated by blockchain, because I saw that potential, that it has a lot of power to change the complete market infrastructure in the financial domain. Yeah, the trust part is completely different. You don't need a counterparty trust due to the fact how blockchain and DLT works. And I was more and more fascinated by thinking about new business models that could come up with DLT. And I think this is one thing that I underestimated or overestimated, to be very honest. I thought we would be seeing a big change in how we are developing in the financial industry due to the fact that we have DLT. So I saw, new marketplaces coming up. I saw not the need of having banks or other regulated entities anymore. But the fact is that we're moving slower than expected on this one, and that is particularly connected to the regulation that we have. So, simple thing, with your car, certainly you will be going faster than 50 in the city. But apparently this is not what you should do in the city. So you could do 200 in the city, but actually 50 is what you should try to stick with. And this is the same with the technological part. I mean, DLT, blockchain, and also crypto. It's so capable. If you also think about DeFi, the question is really what can you do when you look at it from a regulatory standpoint? And this, on the other hand, coming from a traditional financial institution, is highly relevant for us also when designing products.
Definitely, DeFi has this amazing potential to reduce the intermediaries, just like you said about trust. It's sort of ingrained in the way that this operates. So you don't really need to have that revered institution somewhere up there in the sky, but it can just work between you and I. Um, what I'm also curious about, you mentioned a Bison crypto app. What is it? What's the story behind it? Where is it now?
Yeah, so when we designed back then the digital strategy, the main goal that we have is to create a complete digital asset ecosystem, starting from the tokenization, from the ICO part, to various trading types, to the custody, everything out of one ecosystem. That was the goal. So eventually you need to start somewhere, and we decided we wanted to start on the B2C side. And one of the huge shortcomings that I saw with Bitcoin and crypto, and it was very interesting when I was at these crypto conferences. Everybody was asking me, "So what's the biggest problem of Bitcoin?" Referring to some technical scalability issues, and whatever. And I was always like, back then in 2017, 16, the biggest issue of Bitcoin for me personally is that nobody cares about it. And you got a lot of weird looks when I said that, but essentially back then in 2016, 17, only a very, very tiny group of people understood and knew what Bitcoin and blockchain was all about. So it's super complicated to bring the technical complexity to a mass publicity or to mass adoption. And this is why we decided to create an app, mobile first, that has a very, very unique selling proposition, which is simple, smart, and reliable to enter into the crypto space by a trusted party with Börse Stuttgart. So that on the one hand side, you don't have to mind all the technical complexities. And on the other hand, there is certainly a partner that you could trust, that the money that you are transferring to is not then stolen in any way in the first instance when you send it. So, because this is what, when I first digged into the crypto space, I was fascinated by all these people trying to get your private keys or information about your private keys. So this is really, if you're an average person, not really with an IT background, then it's, I think you either need weekends and weekends of time to dig into the space, or you just have some trustworthy party helping you on that way. And this is what we created with Bison, with actually, to be honest, huge success. I think we are, I just 2 weeks ago, we crossed more than 500,000 active users. And yeah, I mean, started early 2019, and now we continuously are growing that, develop the product further. That's Bison, and currently you can trade, I think, 5 cryptos on that, and we will be adding significant share of new cryptos in the next couple of months. We just had to do a lot of technical backup now, technical homework to do.
Technical homework it is. I picked up on what you said about the decision to focus on B2C. I mean, here in this particular space, in cryptocurrencies especially, you are looking at the retail driving both the PR departments of Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies as well as the actual buying. I did a quick Google to make sure that I'm not just assuming things. And outside of the fourth quarter of 2020, when the institutional investors figured out, let's put our foot in the swimming pool just in case we don't miss out on anything. But every other quarter, as reported by JP Morgan, has been driven by retail investors who are with much less volume capability of investing. So they're the sort of weaker dog in the fight, but they still drive it. So the B2C decision is obvious.
That's a typical driving path. So you have a lot of attraction from the retail side, and then the first offers are picking that up. The first institutions are picking that up, and obviously then after B2C, B2B is following. That's a natural path. It's not only in crypto; it's also in other things. If you look at the market, so what's interesting though, and I do understand why the B2B side is a bit more hesitant, because on the way when we decided to go into crypto, which was in 2017, there was obviously a lack of regulatory, I wouldn't say stability, but of regulatory clearness. The best thing that actually happened to us was in 2020 when the German government, or also in Europe, the AML5 directive by the European Parliament came into effect, and national countries in Germany were thinking about how can we integrate crypto and licenses around crypto services into our financial systems. So in Germany back then in 2020 January, that was the beginning of when BaFin, our German regulator, decided to have, if you want to do crypto business and you do custody for third parties, you need to have a crypto custody license. And that was not at all an issue or a problem or throwing us back. It was actually bringing us forward, because all the B2B side all of a sudden said, okay, if our regulator now comes up with a clear path and we know how far we can go left and right, that's the regulation, we can also think about exploiting this crypto space, because now we finally have some guidance on where we need to go or where we can go. So that's, I think, a big, so as you can see, regulation is actually a big field that drives my daily or my weekly business, and we are always maneuvering into that regulated space, of course. So
yeah, we did speak about this on our previous Twitter space, how regulation, we spoke about drones in particular, but the principle is the same, that it's always a specific dance with the regulation where you want to behave in such a way that you don't have to be regulated, but rather that you drive the regulation somehow, because the regulation always will come down in a sort of like a slap on your hands if you don't abide, if you create a situation in which you have to be forcibly regulated. If I may ask this question, because I know that it depends per application, is it just about the custody? Is it just about the trading, or is it that also I own the cryptocurrency on the Bison app? Like, can I take it somewhere else?
Yeah, very good question. And so in fact, we designed the product to take basically all the technical complexity away from you. So the minute you buy the crypto, it's yours, but we do the custody for you. And we actually thought as an MVP that that's it, right? Nobody would want to do self-custody. Why would you want to do that? We are a super trustworthy party, but I mean, obviously, already from the beginning, then, and from the first days, you could take out your crypto and transfer it to your own wallet or different wallet, your ledger. So everything on Bison is free of charge. What we do is we charge the spread, so the difference between bid and ask, and buy and sell price, and so everything else is free. So you open the account, it's free. You trade, it's, so to say, the spread you pay, but there's no fee on top of that, and the spread is about 75 pips. And then if you want to take out money, pay in money, it's free. There's no negative interest rate on the fiat side. If you want to contribute your crypto from some place else to Bison and sell it there or safeguard it there, it's free. If you want to take it out, it's free. So, but the complete system, it's very transparent and open. So you always have the chance to take out your crypto to your own custody solution, or take it back in.
Okay,
Free
so
of charge.
that's way ahead of the pack compared to other apps that are still trying to figure this out.
I think we are one of the few in the market that actually don't charge for crypto in and out. Yeah.
So, or even allow it, because there are some places where you cannot really take it out elsewhere. And I understand what you're saying, because I mean, I really like what you're saying, because essentially, yes, we have opened that door for you, but what's inside the house is so comfortable, so trustworthy, that there's no reason for you to go
Yeah,
out that door.
particularly if you think about self-custody. I mean, not your keys, not your coins. True, completely understand, and that's why I like Bitcoin. That's why I like blockchain. But you have to be aware, if you are a tech-savvy person, obviously you know how to do your the seeds, how to you understand what you need to do to access your crypto, also in case you have loss of your private key, etc., etc. But imagine there's lots of people who are either not skilled enough or don't have enough time or are too comfortable to really dig into that. And even if you are able to do so, you always have to think about the trust part is true if you rely only on your own. What do you do if something happens to you personally? What happens with these assets? And that's actually a very sad situation, because we had in Bison, we unfortunately also had these cases where we had people who had, well, yeah, they died, and then it's very it's a standard process. You have the assets, they're then being distributed to the family. And in the case that you do self-custody and you do not tell anyone about it, maybe you do have family, maybe you do have friends, maybe you do have somebody who you would like to transfer these assets to, but it's just simply not possible if you rely only on yourself. If you do not rely only on yourself, then you again have the trust factor and the issue that somebody else is aware of parts of your keys, or at least has a potential possibility to get access to it. So it's it's great if you work as a person, then you can do all that. But as soon as that doesn't work anymore, then there are, well, things that you need to trust, or people
Yeah.
that you need to trust.
Yeah. I mean, I know of at least one startup that can do your will digitally on a blockchain-based solution. So perhaps it's just going to be a growing ecosystem of solutions for solutions for
Yeah.
solutions. So now expanding outside of just the app into the group's digital strategy, as much as you can say, of course, without any trade secrets or breaking any NDAs, but just to satisfy the curiosity, what was it like, the early successes of the digital strategy? Any situations that you can mention as surprising, unexpected outcomes? Just curious about the overall perception.
So I think what we are very proud of is that we actually delivered in setting up the digital ecosystem. I was just talking about Bison so far, but obviously the custody part, which is also our own company, which is owned by the group, which is called BlockNox, that is doing the custody for crypto assets and digital assets. That was being set up. It's a in Germany now under the custody license. Well, we still have a preliminary license, as we're waiting for the license that BaFin will grant to us hopefully soon. And then what we also created, which I think is remarkable, is Börse Stuttgart Digital Exchange, which is the first European regulated MTF for crypto that you can enter actually as a retailer, but also as a B2B client, and trade your cryptos on in a regulated framework under the MiFID regime, as a multilateral trading facility. So there is trading surveillance. There's everything that comes with an MTF on a European level, and this is where we offer crypto to our customers as well. It's more designed for a, let's say, more trading savvy clientele, and also more for the B2B side. but in general, I think that's a great contribution that complements the ecosystem. And we have, so to say, everything from retail order flow, a brokerage app, Bison, to a fully regulated MTF to trade crypto, and the custody part. What we also have is a tokenization part, where we do offer tokenization services. So you could actually mint your coins with us, and then depending on what kind you want to do, we have services on top that we help you to set up your business models in the token space. So for tokenizing projects and things like that.
You're making this sound so convincing that I got to ask this. I'm Poland based.
Yeah.
Is there a regulatory door that I'm not allowed to pass prohibiting me from using either Bison or BSDX, or should I be able to sign up?
At the moment, we offer, for instance, Bison services to 72 nations or 72 nationalities that have their main residency within the EU or the European Economic Area. So about these 32 countries, where Poland certainly is one of them. So if you're based in Poland, you can certainly open an account and transfer your cryptos to us and trade there.
Well, then at least the single benefit of this interview to you is that the growth of +1 user is guaranteed, because I will sign up immediately after this. So what are the most exciting and important challenges ahead of you right now? And can be exciting because you're happy because you know how to solve them, and they also can be exciting because you don't yet know how to crack something.
Yeah, I think, and I mentioned that before, regulation is an important part of the business models that we're setting up. And here there's always some, let's say, insecurity about where it's going to be developing. So in the past, it played really well for us. To be very honest, I underestimated the time that it really takes, because when we started in 2017, I said we will be trading security tokens, securitized tokens of all kinds, projects, companies, real estate, art, everything, by 2020. And then I realized that this regulation part is actually quite important, and not all basis is set yet to be really there and enabling financial institutions to do so. What is challenging is, particularly if you look at Germany, the case that the legal grounding for this trading of security tokens on a secondary market level in a regulated space, there is no legal ground, or has not been legal ground. Now, the German government this year came up with a new law that actually makes it possible to do the trading of security tokens, at least on some parts. Equity is not yet possible, but we're moving there. And this is also where I see a lot of potential. So the regulation is picking up, the rules, the rights, and everything in that direction is moving. The government is really picking up speed on developing that for us, and to have this all in a, let's say, solid framework on the regulatory side. And I think this is also something for us that we know pretty well how to handle that and to maneuver in that framework. So I'm excited for that. And then, well, there is a lot of potential that I see in this NFT market, for instance, as well. But here the challenges are, again, most of the people or of the projects that we're talking to are all related to, they all understand, or we don't want to do security tokens, so no dividends, no equity-like components inside. But then if you talk more closely, then most of the projects are actually going into that direction. So that means regulatory complexity. And also, obviously, then it kind of hinders the time frame of how they how these projects think that they will be delivered to the outside world, and that makes it challenging when you think about, you have your business model, you have your founders, you have your capital investment, but then it doesn't match with the time frame that you're actually able to deliver. That's a big challenge. And I think we will be having to wait a little bit more to get that regulatory security around these security token things. And the other part that will be super interesting, and I see ourselves quite well situated here, is the complete DeFi space. If you talk about staking and all the new financial models that you can do here, since we've set up the ecosystem and since we are maneuvering in this ecosystem already since 3-4 years, that's a space where we feel pretty comfortable, and we also think that we will be integrating services in that direction where it's regulatory feasible and possible.
Okay, but definitely still you're excited, positively excited.
Yeah, I'm totally positively excited, but with the but that it all needs to be well elaborated. Yeah, if you talk about staking, for instance, you need to look at the risk. You need to look at if you do want to roll out things on a mass market base, it's always the question who at the end will be reliable for. Yeah, is there somebody that who as a retail investor, who is reliable? Who's the reliable party? Who do I sue in case something goes sour, right? And if this is all elaborated quite smartly, then I think this is all doable. I think what will be very challenging will be DeFi products that completely try to ignore regulation. So then the regulator will also be critical about that. So because also the regulator wants to know who is in charge, who will be the one who we can address if things go wrong. If, for instance, you just create a new market space and marketplace, and you have on DeFi level a lot of different market participants, also decentralized exchanges. At the end, who is responsible for the price and the price quality? The regulator wants to know who at the end, who to address. And if there is no one responsible, everyone will be responsible. So this is something which is then very difficult to actually transport into the regulation. So because you personally or me personally being part of the DeFi marketplace would have to fulfill the rules that the regulator puts on a bank or an exchange, which I think will be very tough for us to fulfill.
So we have 10 minutes left because today's episode is supposed to be 45 minutes, correct? So I just wanted to raise that since we have a couple questions of our own and I see a couple questions from the audience. And here, this should open our industry debate. Jacek asks, hi guys, interesting talk. Thank you. What's your view on the whole Bitcoin versus altcoins debate in terms of both your research to retail interest? And also in terms of the industry prism, I wanted to speak about the readiness of cryptocurrencies, the things that perhaps our audience might not know as the principal drivers of whether a cryptocurrency can work. So for example, transaction fees, gas on Ethereum, and so on and so on. So if we could go with Jacek's first and then go back to the entire industry.
Yeah, sure. So what we see from our own, let's say, customer base and products is that still Bitcoin and ETH are pretty dominant. Yeah, so about 60% of holdings of most people are into the Bitcoin and ETH area, and then the rest is distributed across altcoins. And now coming to the potential of them all, I think it will be super interesting how the second layer solutions will look like, and that can be installed on any of them, I guess, or on the altcoin base. Then what will be better than Bitcoin? in terms of scalability. So we do have an issue. I mean, well, it's an industry-wide issue of the energy consumption, and that's pretty, pretty into the news, unfortunately. And I don't think it's very well represented in the news. If you look actually at the amount of mining capacity, I think 70% of Bitcoin mining is already into the ecological space, so by wind and water. So nevertheless, you have this big news about Bitcoin, consuming as much energy as Holland or the Netherlands, and so this is not really putting it in a very nice picture. But here, I think it will be interesting because the second layer solutions that you have, like Lightning or others, will be very positively contributing to the fact that the technology will be spreading positively, and we are just at the beginning of the technological development cycle, so to say. I mean, there's a lot of room for improvement, and there's lots of interesting projects that are covering that. So sorry, Philip, I kind of like missed your question, or that.
No. I was saying that this is a great introduction to the industry prism, because we spoke about you personally, about Börse, and now about the industry more or less. And Jacek's question was a great opener to nothing that's person specific, nothing that's company specific, but something that's rather the entire space specific. So Jacek, thanks for that question. And now carrying on the industry part, the consequences of crypto and Bitcoin becoming an established asset class, or even not just an asset class to narrow it down, but also as an unignorable element of things that people want to either keep or transfer value through.
Yeah, I think we're already there. So I don't really think that Bitcoin and also all big altcoins won't go away that fast. Bitcoin, for instance, I don't think it will go away ever, because it's a really interesting asset class, and you have to look at the different regions across the world where you really have different use cases. So for the US or the European part, I mean, here it's a pretty interesting asset class to invest into and to hold it. And if you look at the inflation and other assets, I think it's a great contribution to diversification of your portfolio. And then if you look at other regions globally, I mean, Bitcoin is being really considered as a safe haven when it comes to price stability. If you compare it to the national currency, if you take, for example, Ecuador, not Ecuador, El Salvador, who introduced Bitcoin as a money tender, and you can actually pay with Bitcoin in the country. And I think more than 1.2 million, so about, I think more than 20% of the population have already downloaded the app from the government to pay in Bitcoin, which is great success for that system. But I think if you look at our region in Europe, where we have pretty stable currency systems, or also the US, I think it might take a while until we will be having fully payable Bitcoin wallets that are accepted across all our shops here. And I also, to the same time, that's one of my biggest fears that I have. Bitcoin does not need national sovereignty. There is no party that can control it. And I think that makes it also a bit scary to a lot of governments. If Bitcoin grows that large that it's actually a threat to national sovereignty, I think some states, or even worse, group of states, might think, okay, how can we not let that happen? You could tell when back then when Facebook announced Libra, that was the first time that national central bank presidents were really shocked and tried to get together very quickly to discuss what is the impact if a global corporation is in charge of creating a currency that might be more interesting than our own. So this is here I see a little bit of a threat by the success of Bitcoin, but I think until we get there will be years passing, and then let's see what other technological achievements are coming along the way.
Definitely, especially that we as human beings, we like to live in our myopic micro perspective of the now. But when we take a step back and a step back, the stock market as we know it was established on Wall Street 200 years ago. So it's not that it's something that we have known for centuries and centuries. We know how to manage it. We are in the scale of how long humans have been around and even have been going through the cultural evolution. We're at the very beginning, and we went from a stock market to something that is much more complex, presents many more dependencies. So I completely understand, on one hand, the need for regulators to be cautious with their decisions, because once you let something out of the cage, it's much more difficult to get it back. And actually, it could be doing some negative stuff if it's not handled and regulated properly. So a funny question from the audience, but I'm gonna throw this your way as a challenge. What's a blockchain? Like, explain like I'm five. I don't know if Bogdan is making this comment as a joke, but it's a cool exercise. Explain it in the simplest way you can.
Well, usually I try to when I first try to educate the people who are completely out of that space. I always say, like, just imagine a huge. The two of us are in front of a big stage, and you're just trying to transfer your house to me, and everyone in the crowd has to basically hear, listen, and accept that you A, have the house, and B, really want to transfer it to me, and I have the money to give it to you. And so yeah, a distributed database system where at least 50% of the database or the distributed database have to understand what really happens there is I think something that it's not super easy to understand, but if you just imagine 50% on the people on that place that are watching us in front of us have to understand that this really happens, and they have to approve it, and then the transaction actually goes through. This is kind of like how blockchain works.
Bogdan, let us know how we did in the comments. And the last two questions, and we have the last 2 minutes or so. Your decision-making framework, any tips that you can share with other chief digital officers or C-suite level executives? What helps you go through the day without spending your cognitive energy on, should I do this? Should I do that? What helps you make the toughest decisions?
Well, for us personally, I think it's the setup of and the structure of the team. When we started, everything was like an upside down pyramid, and you had more or less the 3-4 guys on top who did everything, and then you just try to establish structure and turn it around, and have your C-level, your head offs, your team leads, and good communication processes, and a very, very open communication strategy within your teams, that things and problems, because this is mostly what we are dealing with, are actually being brought up to you so you can handle them. So it's all about communication and structure and processes. And the fun thing is, I was going through all the different stages where I had basically no communication, no processes, to where we are now. And it depends very much on the size of your corporation, of what's actually fitting for you. But if you have more than 100, 200, 300 people, I think processes and structure is really helpful, and the very open communication about problems.
And the last question, on a very, very relaxed note. I'm handing you a magic wand. You get to wave it, and after that, abracadabra, every 12-year-old all of a sudden magically receives the education concerning, you tell me what. We've heard emotional intelligence, coding, design thinking. One of our guests said, let the kids be kids. Stop trying to teach them stuff. Whatever the answer is, there's no right or wrong answer. There's just your answer. So tell me, what do you think?
be yourself, be open-minded, and always do that what you want to do. Because if you put me in controlling, I'll die. And so everyone has a particular set of skill and talent, and I think it's super important that kids understand that they need to build up on that, and it's no right or wrong. Yeah. So it's just that you're having fun and do what you really want to do best, and that you stick to it.
And we have passed the 45 minutes, so 45th minute. So let's wrap it up. Ulli, thank you so much for today. If anybody has any follow-up questions, make sure to drop them in the comments, or feel free to reach out to Ulli personally. Ulli, any closing remarks? Any quote you'd like to leave the audience with concerning blockchain? Stay calm. Don't worry.
Well, I think first of all, thanks a lot for the interview. It was great having me here. I really enjoyed it. And well, yeah, let's stay curious. The future of finance, the future of crypto will rattle our financial system and the financial intermediaries. So if you're excited, we can also accompany you on that path. If you feel like you want to join our team, let us know. We do hire, so reach out.
Definitely reach out to Ulli if you're looking for that. And as a last conclusion, I don't think that never in the history of mankind has fear of missing out been such a great driver for education, because nobody wants to see their friends become the NFT millionaire and regret that they haven't read up an article to understand it better. So Ulli, thank you so much for today. And thank you, dear audience, for attending, and see you later today on Twitter Spaces and next week on the following episode of Disruption Talks. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Philip.